In Fox's latest show, The Cleaning Lady, we focus on a woman who immigrates to the United States in order to hopefully get some type of help to save her 5-year-old son's life. And in the process of making ends meet by being a cleaning lady for events and things like that, she ends up using her medical knowledge from her past life in her new life, which has her cleaning up after criminal activity. So, to establish how life is going, Tony left her life in Manila, where she was a doctor, had a husband, and a child, in order to bring that child to America since she was called saying that there was a donor waiting for him to give some type of either life saving or at least making it so that Luca, who's 5 and has immunodeficiency disorder, he can live outside of the bubbles that Tony is forced to create for him. Unfortunately, that was 8 years, not 8 years, that was 8 months ago when that fell through. And now Tony, alongside her sister-in-law Fiona, have just been doing what they can as undocumented immigrants in order to keep a roof over not just Luca's head, but Fiona's 2 children, Jazz and also Chris, so that Tony can stay in the country long enough, hopefully, to get something that will keep not only Luca alive, but maybe be able to have some form of a normal life. Problem is, their job is cleaning after people, and between sexual harassment, bosses trying to exploit them, and more, it's not an easy life. Fiona's been in the Americas, in the United States for about 15 years, specifically Las Vegas when the show takes place, and it seemingly hasn't gotten any easier for her. It's only really gotten worse. And while, yes, this extra income helps because it doesn't seem that Chris is working at all, or maybe not old enough to work, it does also bring additional issues since when it comes to Fiona's brother Marco and Tony, they lived this nice life, and now she kind of feels like they're slumming with her. And as much as Tony's in the pits with her, it's maybe embarrassing since she's been there so long in terms of being in America. I'm not 100% sure, but it does show that when Fiona gets this connection that will overlook that, her papers have long expired and that Tony's visa has expired, that they could work for this guy on the strip, doing some type of cocktail waitress thing, possibly make a good amount of tips. But the problem with that idea is they have to also sell ecstasy for him to overlook them not having their papers, and Tony's not for that. Because with Fiona always talking about how they have to hide and make sure that, they have no reason to get picked up by immigration or ICE, dealing drugs is not her idea of how to keep low on the radar. Which is kind of funny considering what we talk about our next topic. Our next topic deals with what causes that shift from Tony just being in America, waiting for her son to get that call about a donor, trying to find clinics that maybe could help him, to her working for a criminal organization, cleaning up after their illegal activities. So it begins with Tony working for this guy named Theo, who pretty much the main thing she does is clean the toilets and clean his office while he has these little street fight things. Now, while she's taking out the trash, she finds herself encountering a gentleman named Armand and this little shit named Tariq. Tariq is the son of Hayek, which is Armand's boss, and you can tell that Tariq, he's a little full of himself just because of who his father is. But when it comes to Armand, because his mother was someone like Tony, who was a cleaning lady and sacrificed a lot of her life in order to get him to a position of prominence, even if it is in this criminal underworld, he respects Tony, tells Tariq to apologize to her, and even though Tariq is his boss's son, it seems that Tariq understands the pecking order, and even if his father is over Armand, he listens, apologizes in a very coerced way, and they keep it moving. But when it comes to Theo and Tony, and then the fighter named Diva, I think was her name, who is supposed to take a fall, That's when things start shifting. For Diva didn't want to take the fall, she built up this reputation, her career. So Theo telling her to take a fall and make it look good for whatever bet that he, Armand, and Tariq got going on. She doesn't care about it or is for it. And with Tony kind of egging her in terms of the idea of, you know, women have to stand up for themselves, especially after she just went through with being sexually harassed and one of her other bosses trying to cut or take away her pay. She's not having it. She encourages this woman to do what she needs to do, and so Diva wins the fight. Theo now has an issue with Tariq and Armand, and Tariq, being the hothead idiot that he is, he kills Theo. To make matters worse, Tony was in the room talking to Fiona on the phone, and she hangs up on Fiona when she hears a scuffle. For whatever reason, Fiona calls her back. That reveals her location. And now it seems that Tony may end up joining Theo dead on the ground with her blood seeping into the cement. However, quick thinking, using that doctor's mind, she realizes that there is a problem. She can provide a solution, and she explains how she's going to execute it to Armand, Tariq, and also a gentleman named Mateo, who I believe works under Armand as a sort of enforcer. This buys her enough time to win Armand over, since she does a real good job, since she knows what chemicals you need to make sure that the blood doesn't seep into the cement. And he gives her a nice wad of money in a little envelope, $100 bills. Definitely something that she can't tell Fiona for. She already got on Fiona about the whole not selling ecstasy thing, so her coming home for a bunch of $100 bills, between stripping, sex, other kind of sex work, who knows what, Fiona is going to be asking a bunch of questions, so that money just gets hidden away. Also, it's not something she really wanted to accept because, she just helped cover up the murder of somebody who was quite friendly to her, but it is what it is. She has her son to worry about, so as much as it's sad that Theo died, especially just when he was starting to get on good terms with his 16-year-old, soon-to-be 16-year-old daughter, Shelby, it's kind of like, unfortunately, it is what it is. Gotta do what you gotta do. But it's not just a one-time thing for Armand. Because of Tony reminding him of his mom, who we're not told is dead or alive at this point, he decides to call her up and start an agreement, one in which she's going to work for him in terms of cleaning up some of his messes, or even just the organization he works for. The first official job outside of, cleaning up Theo's dead body is him having her clean up after his wife, who, for whatever reason, Nadia decides to have what looks like an orgy in his home. And because Tony is just that damn good, it goes from a place that's filled wall to wall with people in masks, stuff all over the floor, drinks all over the place, possibly bodily fluids all over the place as well, to it looking quite pristine by the next morning when, after Armand lets his wife do whatever and have whatever she needs to get out of the system, coming back and pretty much his house being like a normal place. Now, when he told Tony to clean up, he didn't want her talking to his wife, but Tony saw this woman at the time who was very drunk, definitely maybe coming off of a high, and she didn't know that Tony did not know that Nadia was Armand's wife. And from what it seems, Armand, it isn't clear why he is with Nadia at all, but he is, and I guess at this point, their marriage is about her knowing too much for him to end the relationship, hence why he lets his wife have a huge-ass orgy at their house, where he doesn't participate, by the way, but he knows there's a good chance that she's not just a hostess. But at this point, Tony doesn't really care. That's his business, as Tabitha Brown would say. And she just leaves with another wad of cash, keeping from Fiona, and takes herself home. Now, no sooner than she's home, she finds herself getting called again. And that's because even though she cleaned up any type of evidence that Theo got murdered, what she didn't get a chance to clean up is all the stuff that Theo was hiding. Because while on a surface level it just seemed that Theo was into, street fights between women, the truth is beneath that floor there was drugs, money, hard drives with who knows what on them. And now Tony is expected to clean up after that to make sure that there's nothing left behind. But what Farman didn't know is that his boss, Tariq's father, Hayek, he planted bombs already in that warehouse to handle that situation, and in his mind, part of the situation is the fact that Tony's still alive. So Amon somehow rushes his way from whatever part of the Nevada desert he's in to where Tony is to thankfully get her out of the basement, which was locked. And while there's a Michael Bay type of explosion that they escape, Tony does get injured. Not Tony. Amon gets injured in the process. Just a laceration on the leg. And thankfully for him, Tony is able to cauterize the wound, but this leads to a second conversation about how their agreement is going to go, because now it's not just her cleaning up after him, now her life has been threatened. So she makes sure to have him promise to take care of her kid, and I should note, he's already started doing so through the doctor he usually uses for situations like this, and so that now Luca is in some clinical trial that lasts for about 52 weeks. However, now she wants to make sure if something happens while she's doing this kind of work, she's protected. And also if something happens where, she can't be protected, her son will be okay. Which is agreed to. However, while she may have a contingency plan in terms of working with Amon, what she perhaps isn't prepared for is the FBI lurking and them likely going to exploit either her, Fiona, maybe both of them at the same time, in order to not just take down Amon, but also maybe Tariq, and let's not forget Hayek. So in terms of highlights, we have to begin with Elodie Young, who plays Tony. And one of the things we really appreciate about the way that her character is crafted in the story thus far is that Young's Tony is not heavily reliant on using Luca's sickness and the cuteness of the actor in order to be a sort of crutch. Her being a mother is just part of a story. It's not the whole story. It's not her whole... It's a strong part of her motivation, but you could also see everything else that comes with it. Her being a cleaning lady for these people who are willing to exploit undocumented workers clearly is a terrible life. One that almost led to her being assaulted in this episode. So to see her not just be a mother, but be an advocate for herself when it comes to getting the pay that she deserves, and even in a way making it so that the employer doesn't think they can just run over women like her just because she's undocumented, was such a good moment. But the one that's probably the best and kind of helps you understand how she taps into that doctor experience is when after Theo died, Fiona called and she got caught. Just seeing her kind of like quick action thinking when it comes to seeing a problem, analyzing it, coming up with solutions, and then executing it really helps you understand. While we don't know what type of doctor she was, whether she was a surgeon or who knows what, you can see that doctor mindset kick in. And I think between that doctor mindset, her having like this, I don't want to say larger than life, because that sounds like such a cliche, but there's something about her that kind of has like what they call big dick energy, because even though most of the time she's looking up at the men that she's talking to, you can see like her energy, her charisma, her being kind of makes her stand eye to eye, if not looking down on them like in a David and Goliath kind of way. And it's just so awesome to watch. The second highlight is how the show uses culture in order to give these characters a sense of pride and empowerment. As shown throughout American history, there in order to force people to Americanize and assimilate, they usually try to strip them of who they were before they encountered Europeans who wanted to create this country. When it comes to black people, they stripped them of all their cultures, all their religions, and made it so all that they knew was English, Christianity, and wherever they came from, whoever they were before, it got lost. When it came to Native Americans, again, genocide as much as they could. But I would say one of the things you kind of see when it comes to the cleaning lady is that certain pride that you can also see in shows like Reservation Dogs, in terms of despite all you've been through, you're still here, you're still alive, and maybe you're not thriving as you could be, but you can still say that your people still are alive and made it. And I think when it comes to Fiona and Tony in this show, yes, there's a why would I call him a gentleman? There is a guy who tries to there's a guy who grabs on to Tony and harasses her. There's that boss who tried to mess with their pay because Fiona decided to defend her sister-in-law against somebody who was trying to assault her. And you can see with them being in a vulnerable position when it comes to dealing with guys like that and being undocumented, which means there's the fear of ICE coming in, swooping them up and sending them away, while Fiona's kids will be trapped in America because they're Americans. It's a lot of stuff that makes it so the idea of having to hide, be small, make yourself discreet, and possibly take on a lot more stress and annoyances than you should, it can kind of seep away at your dignity and pride. Yet, I would say that once Fiona gets to be home, she gets to speak Tagalog with Tony and regain a sense of self, it really helps you understand why it's important to know who your people are, know who you are, or know who you are outside of the American landscape. And through their conversations, I feel that you could easily see Fiona becoming the kind of person that could beat her kids, drink, do drugs in order to deal with the life that she's had for the last 15 or so years. But I think whether it's just Tony arriving to America and those two getting to reconnect, or just knowing who she is outside of how Americans see her, it creates a kind of pride and sense of self and empowerment that makes it so no matter how much they may try to beat her into submission, make her seem less than, she knows who she is, she knows who her people are. So with that, they may cut at her when they're on the outside, but she heals and is ready for battle the next day, all because of her pride as a Filipino woman who's making it despite everything that's being thrown at her. The next highlight is Armand. Now, is he as strong as a highlight as Elodie Young is? Or even in terms of what Fiona brings, in terms of giving us a sense of what it means to be undocumented in America? No. But there's no denying that Armand has potential. He, at the very least, fits the kind of criminal that you need for this kind of show. Yes, he is involved with people who will murder somebody just on a whim, but at the same time, I wouldn't say he has a heart of gold, but at the very least, he still doesn't seem completely hardened and callous to the idea of treating people like Tony with respect and honoring people like his mother who, may not be the most visible, may not be the most valued members of an organization or society, but he sees them. He recognizes they deserve respect. And there's this hope that they avoid having some weird Electra complex situation, which is kind of funny because Elodie Young played Electra in a former Daredevil show, or maybe a movie, I'm not sure which one, but I'm just hoping that despite how Armand's marriage seems to be and how it doesn't necessarily seem like Tony is really trying to keep things alive with her husband back home, that those two don't get together and instead we see a sort of complication between Tony recognizing what Amon's involved with and possibly capable of, yet also seeing a soft side to him that she's unsure about. And when you add in the fact that you can kind of see that Amon may create some type of relationship with Luca, what that could also bring to the story, since Amon probably sees himself in Luca a little bit because of all that Tony's doing, and who knows? We don't know what the full story is between Nadia and Amon, so between just their backstory and what that could bring to the show, it may be him wanting to have like a more normal life. Maybe that can make it so when it comes to Tony getting involved with the FBI, who is already tracking her. Maybe it will create more complications than how this could play out, as it would in quite a few shows that try to be less inventive. Which leads us to the on-defense topic, which is the government agents. Right now, the government agents, they come off like the type that are definitely going to exploit Tony, probably Fiona as well, and just be a usual. We're the United States government or backed by the United States government, do what we say, or else you're going to get deported, killed, yada, yada, yada. I'm just hoping that they're not as generic as they seem, because just that scene of them in the car with the binoculars and all that, it felt way too familiar. Like it must be a trope. And I want to have faith. I want to have hope. And because of that, it makes me know that this show is good, because even though I'm seeing a lot of stuff that looks familiar, I believe that they'll follow a different path rather than the well-treaded road.